welcome to Race for the White House, a show where we get you the latest from America's political landscape. So on today's show, we'll tell you about the unending legal woes of Donald Trump in his HushMoney trial case. Also on the show, we'll uncover some shocking reports about Trump and his MAGA camp laying the groundwork for chaos. All of this and much more, so let's get started. So first up, Donald Trump's legal challenges are just refusing to die down. With less than 60 days away from the impending presidential polls, a federal judge has now swiftly rejected Trump's request to intervene in his HushMoney trial case. Now, this hinders the former president's latest bid to overturn his felony conviction and delay his sentencing. So, the US District Judge Alvin Hellerstein ruled that Trump had not given enough proof required for a federal court to take control of the case from the state court. If you remember, a state judge had earlier scheduled Trump's sentencing for September 18, although Trump had asked the judge to delay it until after the presidential election. So now, to give you a brief background, a jury convicted the former president on 34 felony counts in May this year. This was on counts of falsifying business records to cover up a HushMoney payment of about $130,000 made to an adult star, Stormy Daniels. This, as Daniels had reportedly threatened to go public with her account of a one-night stand encounter with Trump in 2006. So if you see, falsifying business records is punishable by up to 4 years behind bars. In fact, other potential sentences include a hefty fine. So now Trump has argued that presidents have immunity from criminal charges in accordance to a US Supreme Court's landmark ruling in July. Now, although the HushMoney case happened way before he became the president, the former president still argues that the trial was tainted by testimony and other evidence that would have been barred under the court's immunity standard. So now, moving the case to federal court would have been a potentially faster way for Trump to appeal his conviction to the Supreme Court. If Trump wins the election, he can order the Justice Department to drop the case, a power he doesn't have over the state cases. Now, Trump's lawyer argued that sentencing him on September 18 would actually amount to election interference. And this implies that Trump could be jailed as voting begins in the early stage around that time. So now Trump's legal team argue that delaying proceedings is necessary, citing constitutional rights violations. Now the former president's legal woes seems to be amplifying during the final sprint in the race for the White House, as the HushMoney misery has coincided at a time when Trump's Democratic rival Kamala Harris has been gaining grounds in key states. Moving on, now this week is turning out to be a rough one for Donald Trump. Trump's much touted photo op at Arlington National Cemetery didn't go down well in the public eye. The incident even raised eyebrows of some fellow Republicans. But for late Republican Senator John McCain's son, the incident was the last straw. In an exclusive interview with CNN, Jimmy McCain said that after last week's events at the cemetery, he has registered as a Democrat and will vote for Kamala Harris. Now remember, this is coming from the son of a staunch Republican. You should also know that John McCain served in the army as well and has spent about 5.5 years as a prisoner of war in Vietnam. He was even accorded a war hero status earlier. So, however, in 2016, Trump had argued that McCain does not deserve the honor because he had been captured during the Vietnam War. McCain had recently returned from deployment at a military base in Jordan and said that he changed his party affiliation to honor his father. McCain even went on to say that Trump's incident at Arlington was a violation. Now, to give you a brief background, Trump visited the Arlington National Cemetery last week. Trump did a photo op to honor the victims of those who died in the Abbey Gate attack on Kabul airport, and this was during the US withdrawal from Afghanistan. According to the army, a member of the Trump's team abruptly pushed aside a cemetery official so that the campaign staff could take photos and videos. But Trump's team has disputed the army's account. He has even defended it and released supportive statements from the relatives of the 6 of the armed forces members. The former president even went on to say that it was a made-up story by Kamala Harris. Now, McCain's decision to speak out against Trump is a part of his broader shift away from the Republican Party and his family's famously conservative roots. It's a significant move for the son of a former GOP presidential candidate and Arizona senator. Now, McCain says that the Arlington episode shows Trump's disrespect for the fallen American soldiers. He also said that it stems from Trump's own insecurities about not having served in the army. Now, McCain, for his part, is now bracing to get more involved in this election cycle. While He has been involved in veteran advocacy work for years. He acknowledges that his own recent political shift has been deeply personal. Now, for most presidents and presidential candidates, leaving office smoothly is a noble task. But for Donald Trump, he starts and ends his stint in a blaze of chaos. For Trump, there was no bye-bye speech but a farewell riot. Now, Trump has changed people's expectations of what presidents can be and should be. And the Trumpism that we saw from 2016 to 2020 is far from over. Political pundits and experts are now pointing out that the former president and his allies are sowing the seeds of chaos ahead of the presidential polls. Conservative fringe groups known as Turning Point USA and True the Vote are rampantly spreading conspiracy theories about election fraud. And this is being done to lay the groundwork for claiming that the election was rigged if Trump loses. Now, the shocking revelations came from none other than but a fellow Republican, John Giles. So the guy serves as a former mayor of Mesa in Arizona, and he spoke at the Democratic National Convention last month. He expressed that conservatives will throw anything and everything. For instance, the fringe groups have deployed $1 million drive to get more voters for Trump in key swing states. These rallies are banking on claims that the 2020 election was rigged and potential fears of fraud in this year's election. So according to the Center for Election Research, false charges of voting by non-citizens has also become an issue in the MAGA ecosystem. To drum up the fears of non-citizen voting, True the Vote sent out a fundraising appeal in March. Election experts and Republican veterans warn that such efforts by Trump and his MAGA allies are habingos for claiming that the election is rigged if Trump loses. On another election front, Trump has also attacked Harris for spearheading a vicious, violent overthrow of Biden to replace him as the party's nominee. These dual drives by these MAGA groups started months ago. However, they've only picked up steam only after Biden dropped out of the re-election bid. Now, these warnings are there, and we all know what happens when Trump slips into denial and despair. Now, with the election inching closer, it is turning out to be a grimly predictable finale if Trump loses. It's the final spring to the presidential election, but there are some major dates and events that are just ahead of us. Our next report gives you the entire timeline of the events leading in to the November 5 election.
The process of voting kicks off in North Carolina. They have a absentee voting program where anyone can vote by absentee. That's the date when the state starts to send out absentee ballots, and also the earliest date that someone can actually fill out a ballot and return it. Delaware also has an early date. They have a more limited absentee ballot process, but people there will be starting to vote well before Election Day also.
This debate has been highly anticipated by just about everybody paying close attention to the presidential race, and it's something that both Trump and Harris have been saying that they wanted to do. In a lot of their campaign appearances and speeches along the trail, both Trump and Harris have talked about wanting to have that one-on-one moment with each other. And let's not forget, the only other presidential debate that's happened in the general election cycle was pretty pivotal.
This sentencing hearing brings back into the forefront Trump's legal jeopardy. This is the only one of the 4 criminal cases that he's faced that reached a trial, and so if Trump is indeed sentenced on September 18th, it will be the first and only time this year that he will be facing a judge and receiving some sort of sentence as a result of a criminal conviction. But But one thing to really watch for if the sentencing does in fact proceed on September 18th is whether the judge imposes a prison sentence. That's certainly an option. We don't yet know whether the Manhattan District Attorney's Office is going to recommend that or what the judge is going to do, but that's going to be a real significant thing to watch in the weeks ahead.
As far as we know, this may be the only time that we see Vance and Walz face off one-on-one on a debate stage, although there could be other debates scheduled in the weeks to come. But with both men as running mates on their tickets, it's still very much an opportunity for them to introduce themselves to a broader audience. Both are currently in elected office, but may not be super well known outside of their home states and the offices that they hold.
What's significant about November 5th is that it's the final day of voting because people had started voting earlier, but it's also the first day of vote counting. So it's kind of the demarcation point between when people vote and when the vote starts to get counted. Longer ago, when elections weren't as competitive, we often knew who the winners were on election night. But in modern elections, it's typically taken longer. So we have to let the vote count play out. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer beyond election day to figure out actually who the winner is.
So time now for some quick updates from the political landscape in the US that you might have missed. Vice President Kamala Harris has kicked off a weekend-long reproductive freedom bus tour in Florida. The campaign will be joined by reproductive rights storytellers in the Harris-Walz rallies, and the bus tour began just days after Trump announced a sweeping new policy proposal on in vitro fertilization, promising to make the costly treatment free. Now, women's reproductive rights are a key voter issue driving suburban women to the polls. It has been on the spotlight since the Supreme Court overruled the constitutional right to abortion that had been the nationwide law for almost 50 years. Next up, a federal judge has ordered Donald Trump's campaign to stop using the song "Hold On, I'm Coming Home" by Isaac Hayes. Now, a district judge issued a pre-preliminary injunction against Trump and his campaign, ruling that it can no longer play the song at his rallies. The ruling came after objections from Isaac Hayes III, son of a renowned musician who strongly opposed Trump's use of his father's work. Now, the late musician's son emphasized that the decision was motivated by concerns over Trump's character and not political differences. And last up, according to a new Reuters poll, Donald Trump is outperforming his 2020 support among Hispanics who prefer him on immigration policies during the 2024 race. According to the poll, Hispanic voters give Trump a 42% to 37% advantage over Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris on the immigration policy. So among the broader electorate, 46% preferred Trump on migration over the 36% who preferred Harris. Now, Trump's performance among Hispanics overall looks to see a significant improvement compared to 2020 elections. So now, if you're one of those who are curious to know what shaped up Donald Trump's business and political acumen, we have the answer for you. The upcoming film Apprentice is giving viewers a first look showing Trump's rise in the real estate industry and his relationship with his mentor, Roy Cohen. Now, described as an original story, it will examine the early years of the former president's New York real estate career in the 1970s and 80s. Take a look at this clip as we leave you with these visuals.
And Judy, about 100 reporters were crawling up my ass to get this interview, and I gave you the exclusive.
Yes, hello, Judy. This is Donald Trump. I'm very excited to talk to you.
Be excited.
Donald, now that the lawsuit is behind you, what do you want to do next?
Well, I intend to acquire the Commodore, and I'm planning on making it the best and the finest building in the city, maybe the country, in the world. Judy, in the world. It's going to be the finest building in the world. It's going to be a spectacular hotel. Absolutely spectacular. First class. And
That sounds very ambitious. Where do you get the drive? You're still so young, Donald.
I got flair and I'm smart, so I think that's going to make me successful. But I also want to stay humble.
Sorry, Judy. Listen, let's do the rest in person and bring a photographer, okay?
Sorry, all right.
No, I mean, listen,
Caught
it's
me
your
off
life. You got a ways to go, but you're learning.
Thank you so much for watching this. We'll be coming back to you with more updates from US elections.